Hi, ECE 145 students. I hope you enjoyed your spring break. I wanted to record this week's PowerPoint, and it will be available in the module format along with a couple of handouts and discussions for this week. I will be online at about 6 o'clock tonight, and so I'll be talking to many of you there as well. So make sure to sign in later and watch the Zoom recording too if you miss that. That will mostly be a discussion about how we're doing and what's in the module. But this video is going to be the full PowerPoint and discussing some questions to think about for our conversations this week. So hopefully you're doing well in your locations, and hopefully I get to talk to all of you in a few minutes. If not, I will reach out to you and check in. So this week's purpose is to tie imaginative thought to peace education, to see playfulness and imagination as nourished by a non-competitive, non-judgmental atmosphere, to experience divergent thinking. Divergent thinking means that we're able to think outside of our own perspective and see the perspective of others. The importance of playfulness to children's thinking, learning spirits, we want to discuss that. We also want to explore the role of optimism. We need optimism now more than ever. Hope is what's keeping us moving forward, many of us. Love of life, not having to win, that sometimes winning is not the goal. There are new possibilities in everything, including our current situation. Mistakes are not failures. And to further the skills of reading aloud. So we're going to look at all of that this week. So I do have some books I'm going to read for you. Unfortunately, I don't think I have Play Lady at home. That's the one I was planning to read for you. On the web page for the Peace Library, which I will show you during the Zoom meeting tonight, and again, I'll record that and put that up for everyone. There is a Facebook page for the Margot Trombetta Peace Education and Anti-Bias Education Children's Library. I've been reading books aloud on that page, and for our Making It Real project, I would like you to encourage families to check out the library webpage and possibly read a book aloud on a video yourself to share with the webpage. So we can talk about what that looks like. Also, I would like you to think about with your Making It Real how you can do something to reach out to families in need. It could be creating a video of kitchen science. It could be all kinds of different things. So we'll talk about that. I want to set up individual times to meet with each of you to figure out what your Making It Real looks like now that we can't leave our houses. Could be something like sharing toilet paper. So we'll get to looking at those read alouds in a little bit. This is definitely the imagination and playfulness strand, finally. So in this week's discussion, I want you to think about a few different things. The first is, what does it mean, this idea of imagination and playfulness in the age of COVID-19? Our children are sheltered at home right now with their families. Many of these families don't know how to keep a preschool child entertained and actively engaged in the house for a month or 2 months at a time. So how can we help develop that sense of imagination and playfulness in our families and children right now when what we have is virtual digital access? The thing that we keep telling families is not good for children is the thing that's keeping us connected, our computers and our screens. This is an opportunity for us to really think about how we define good use of screen time and how we define screen time that's damaging for children. So we need to provide options to what's out there. So that'll be part of the discussion this week. In our culture, we tend to look at imagination as something extra, something to be tamed, or at least reserved for actors and actresses or artists. Many adults forget how to do imagination. It's something that gets in the way of rational thinking, is the perception. So how does that limit us? One of the ways I've been encouraged to participate in imagination with my daughter's treatment team in Missouri is to do improv theater. So if you haven't done improv before, you might want to look up some simple how-tos and play with some improv with the people that you're sheltering in place with, or play over Zoom. It's a great way to get outside of your comfort zone, and I'll try and post some information about improv in this week's module as well. But how do these ideas of imagination limit our thinking and limit our play as adults? That'll be part of this week's discussion. Many of the qualities to become peacemakers in the world are based on imagination. Understanding the situation of someone different from oneself requires a leap of imagination. How do world leaders and negotiators use this tool to build peace, for example? We are at a time where we can come closer together and build bridges, or we can continue to encourage violence. There was a very difficult story I heard today of an entire family that was violently attacked because they quote unquote appeared Chinese. And this apparently happened in Texas. The racism and violence against families who are Asian appearing, or individuals who are, is steeply on the increase. And we have to figure out how are we going to respond in a way that counters the misinformation that's out there about COVID-19, and how are we going to find ways to help with the rage that's being channeled in inappropriate directions. People are angry and furious that they're being asked to shelter in place, that they're losing their jobs. Our unemployment rate is up to 30% right now, I believe. That is a higher number than I think anybody could have ever predicted. So we have to think about how do we use imagination as leaders to rebuild our world after this time that we're in. Children naturally rely on their imaginations. Children are incredibly imaginative, and we know this, those of us who've been teachers, especially in the early years. It helps children express their experiences and their feelings, their emotions. It mentally changes unpleasant parts of experiences and can magically add new outcomes or possibilities. I want you to think about, how do we support them in being able to do this in our classrooms? How do we do this and support this over Zoom, over our internet capabilities? How do we connect with families and children in ways that encourage that type of imagination? Imagination flourishes in an environment of playfulness and delight. A joyful classroom is one in which everyone feels truly safe. Nothing solves hurt feelings faster than genuine laughter. How can adults create an environment where playfulness is encouraged, where humor is not based on unkindness, where children are encouraged to give themselves fully to the play that they create? How do we allow that abandonment of restriction and let children truly have their imagination when they're engaged in classrooms? How do we explain imagination to families that are at home with their children? And how do they create those environments for children in these tight spaces that they have? I want you to pause the video at this point. I want you to think about what you remember about playing, and take 5 to 10 minutes and write down, what was the specific time? What did you do in that play? Were you with others or alone? Where were you? What did it feel like? Write freely for 5 to 10 minutes, then come back to the video and resume. And then you're going to use this for writing in your post in the discussions this week. So welcome back from doing your writing. Hopefully you did pause and do that. If not, pause now and come back and I'll be here. I'm going to group you by small groups this week based on some articles around imagination, and I want each small group to talk about that article. So if you're assigned a group, you'll have an article assigned to that group. And then just come up with 5 to 6 highlights from the article that you want to share with the class next week, and we'll post those in next week's conversation. Have a good discussion with the peers in your small group about the article you have and how it is useful in classrooms with children for teachers, but also how is it useful for families right now? Is there something in the article you could share with families of young children? And again, we'll post that to next week's discussion. This week, you'll be working with 2 or 3 other people to talk about that specific article. Our book shares obviously are going to look really different. So there's going to be a discussion about Bookshare. I want you just to put the title of the book, what you really loved about this imagination book, and how you think you could use it in the classroom. Take a look at the books other people post. If you have the ability to put a photo of the book up, that's great. If not, just describe it as well as you can. And then everybody will look at each other's books that they've posted. If you can do a video of yourself reading the book, that'd be fantastic. That time can count towards your Making It Real project, and I'll add it to our Peace Library page on Facebook. The next strand we're going to be looking at is conflict resolution, and we'll be looking for 3 books around conflict resolution. If you don't have children's books at home, which most of you probably don't, I want you to use the database to search for the books you want and then email me and find out if I have them. And then I'll try and read some of those books to you over webcam and record that so that you have those books to look at as well. I only have about a third of the library at home, so I may or may not have the one you look for, but it's a good chance to use the database and try. And we'll see what I brought home and whether or not it's what we want. There's a video in this week's module about the importance of play and what it does for our brains and why it's so critical, even in times of grief or stress. So that will be in the module for you to look at as well. And I think it's an important one possibly to share with other people, because imagination is critical now. We are experiencing a time of deep trauma, and our imagination is part of what's going to help us through that. So please look at that video in the module. Think about, as you're going through this week and posting in discussions and looking for your books, think about all the different things you do in your life. Whether it's drudgery, work, amusement, play, some of that is determined by who decides if you get to participate or if you have to participate. Who decides what you do? Who gets to make the decision in that activity? Who decides how it is done? Why do you do what you do? What is the motivation behind it? And how is the activity valued, not just by you, but by other people? All of these questions will help us figure out whether we're feeling that sense of true play or whether it feels like drudgery or work. Hopefully what you do this week will feel like true play. I want you to try anything playful this week and talk about it in our discussions. There's a handout for everybody. It's the Read Aloud Handbook by Jim Trelease, and it is available online. As you read it, think about what was interesting and surprising, what was really valuable to know. You're going to be posting about that in your reading reflection this week, and hopefully using the information from there to practice your own read alouds. I do need to know this week what access you have to children's books, because the goal is to have you actually do some reading aloud and practicing that. So somewhere in this reading reflection, please tell me I have no access or I have tons of books. None of them are Peace Library books, whatever it is. Please give me some read on how you're doing with your books at home. I also want to hear how you're doing. So in your reading reflection, if not on our Zoom call tonight, please give me an update on where you're at and how you're doing. It's been a rough week. I'm going to do a read aloud of the Swirling Hijab. I can't do It's a Box because I didn't bring it home, but I will find a couple of books to read that are imagination and share those with you. Some of those are already up on the Facebook page, so I encourage you to go look at those read aloud videos that are on Facebook. If you can't get to Facebook, I'll also give you a link in the module to the YouTube channel where these videos are being posted, so you can get to them that way as well. As you listen to the books that you're going to listen to on YouTube, think about how do they interact in the different books? What do I do to make the reading effective for children and adults who might be listening? What's the genre? What age do you think it's for? What is the setting? Go back to all those readings we've been doing about those different topics and see if you can, sorry about the beeping, see if you can pick that out. Developmental stages of reading for children. The first one is anything I can do, I can say. Before children can read, they have to understand that words have power, that they're important. Once they realize that, they realize that anything I can say can be written down. So when we take dictation from children, that's the next stage in reading development, because they start to realize that these words they're saying can be written onto a page, and that has such incredible power for them. Then they realize anything I can write can be read. So really, literacy starts with the child, starts with what they're interested in, what they're fascinated with. And it begins there always. Find someone to connect with this week, whether it's somebody in this class or somebody in another class or a friend or somebody you're sheltering in place with. I want you just to talk to somebody about your memories of somebody reading aloud to you. What do you remember about the experiences? What emotions come up for you as you're thinking about it? How did the adult reading help you create a sense of wonder about the story? What did they do that for you? How did it inspire your imagination? Have a phone call or a Zoom call with somebody you haven't seen that you really want to talk to. It could be somebody in the class or somebody not in the class. But reach out and talk about the power of read aloud and see what comes up for you. So homework for next week, I'm going to put some things in the module for next week. I want you to reread the strand Creative Conflict Resolution, Sense of Justice. So I'll put the 6 strands back into this week. Read chapter 5 of Diane Levin's book that you should all hopefully have at home with you. There'll be a handout from Eric Hoffman, Magic Capes and Amazing Powers, to read for next week. So they both present ideas for helping children think about, learn about, and cope with violent images, ideas, and experiences, which we really need right now. And you're going to write a few pages about these ideas and the Jim Trelease Read Aloud handout and post those in your reading reflection for this week. Again, about a page or two. And share with me in that reading reflection how you're doing right now and how these handouts help you right now with everything we're going through. Your next books are children's books about conflict resolution. Select 3 children's pictures books from the database. So search www.childpeacebooks.org and look for what you can find in that database. Let me know what books you want me to read aloud, and I'll read those aloud on videotape. Include a short statement about why you like the book on the back of your bibliography forms. Those are available electronically in this week's module. So make sure to complete 3 bibliography forms on those books. Again, we're going to have to be creative about how to get the books to you. I'm also going to read again from Hannah, and so you get to catch up with Hannah this week. So I'll put that into the module probably tomorrow. I look forward to seeing you all on a Zoom call shortly, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much. Bye.